Good morning from Puvirnituq, Nunavik, Quebec. My name is Alex, and welcome to this trip report. Today, I'm here in Quebec's far north to fly with Air Inuit on board their Dash 8-300 back down south to Montreal. First things first though, this flight has an interesting backstory to it. If you haven't watched the previous Air Inuit video on the 737-200, there's a link in the top right corner of your screen, and it'll at least partially explain why I'm here. The Nunavik region, or the part of Quebec that's north of the 55th parallel, is predominantly Inuit, and it's home to 14 different communities that depend on air travel. Long story short, the original plan for this trip was for my good friend Mark Brandon and I to fly on Air Inuit 737-200 and also to stay a few nights in the largest town in the region called Kuujjuarapik. That required, first of all, that flight on the 737 to Puvirnituq, and then another one on a King Air across to Kuujjuarapik. Now, the first flight went off without a hitch, and it was an amazing experience, but pretty soon after landing in Puvirnituq, it became clear that things were not going to go to plan. At the time, the winds in Puvirnituq were around the 35-knot mark, gusting up to 45 knots or even higher. Obviously, the 737-200 is a flying tank, and still made it in and out, but that meant that every other flight was cancelled, including Kuujjuarapik. Puvirnituq has a population of just 1,600 people, and after a local very generously gave us a ride, we found our way to the one hotel here, and thank goodness they had a room. For $220 a night, and given just where we were, it was exactly what we needed to regroup and hopefully continue on the next day. After a quick walk to the local grocery store to grab some food for the rest of the day and the next morning, and also to gawk at the prices, we bundled up and went off to take some more photos. By pure chance, we ended up meeting some folks from Air Inuit who once again very generously gave us a ride to show us around. We saw so much more than we ever would have on foot, so a huge thank you to you guys. Seeing as we thought this would be our only night in Puvirnituq, we were pretty happy with how much we'd seen, and hopefully we'd just be able to continue on tomorrow. We woke up the next morning, checked the weather, and oh, what's even worse? Needless to say, hopes were not high, but we walked to the airport anyway to confirm, and yeah, we would not be heading to Kuujjuarapik today. With that, we decided to cut our losses and instead spend the rest of the time in Puvirnituq, with the intention of doing what two aviation YouTubers do in a new place, and each of us making a special plane spotting video here. That second day was pretty uneventful, with the winds being even higher. There wasn't much point in waiting to see something at the airport. So we stopped again at Northern for some more essentials, made some friends who definitely weren't just after the groceries, and managed to keep our room for one more night. The third day, the winds were finally a bit calmer. Not by a whole lot, but enough that regular traffic was able to make it in and out, resulting in the 23 minutes of wind noise I uploaded a few weeks ago. Nevertheless, I'm really proud of some of this footage, and being able to say that I've both landed on a gravel runway in a 737 and spotted it for myself is pretty cool. Eventually, the fourth and final day came around, and after those 3 solid days of overcast skies and absolutely unforgiving winds, the sun came out and it was glorious. We took one last walk around the town to appreciate it in actual sunlight, and it is a beautiful place when you're not constantly fighting 100km/h wind. In all seriousness, Puvirnituq has some amazing natural beauty, and everyone that we met was so friendly, if not a little confused as to why we were here. With one last look out towards Hudson Bay, it was finally time to head home, and instead of seeking shelter in the terminal between airplanes, we'd finally be flying on one. Specifically, this 24-year-old de Havilland Canada Dash 8-300, registered as Charlie Golf X-Ray Alpha India. This Dash 8 was first delivered to Tyrolean Airways in 1997, then flew with Austrian Aeros, and joined Air Inuit in 2010. This flight that we'll be taking does eventually get us to Montreal, but it's quite the milk run down the eastern coast of Hudson Bay. I'll tell you a bit more about the routing once we're actually in the air, though. Now, the terminal in Puvirnituq is not the largest, but it's very functional and, as far as I could tell, serves the community's needs. However, one thing may seem like it's missing as we lined up to board the aircraft. If you guessed no security checkpoint, you're exactly right. If I had to guess, it's most likely not cost-effective to have CATSA at every one of these smaller airports, and instead they actually did screen us at a later stop before getting into Montreal. So, let's finally go check out the Air Inuit Dash 8-300. On these first few legs, Air Inuit actually has open seating, and so I made a beeline for the rear exit row. Seat 10E has ample legroom for me and this very nice view of the landing gear and back of the wing. This is only the first of 4 flights today, so let's just get right into it. Here's our departure from Puvirnituq off of runway 19.
Welcome to all the passengers on board flight 803 departing from Montreal with steps in Inukjuak, Umiujaq, and Kuujjuarapik. Flight time for Inukjuak today will be 34 minutes at 12,000 feet. We will be departing shortly.
This milk run flight typically starts off in the community of Saluit, then heads west to Umiujaq, south to Akulivik, and then to Puvirnituq. For this first flight, we'd be heading south along the Hudson Bay coast to the community of Inukjuak, with some absolutely breathtaking views along the way. Like I said before, being able to see this in sunlight 100% makes up for those cloudy days. Honestly, I was pretty speechless. Spectacular views aside, I do have a seat to show you. This exit row seat has a fairly standard tray table. In the seat back pocket is an air sickness bag, a message from Air Inuit on keeping safe, and the Dash 8 300 safety card. Due to ongoing events, Air Inuit wasn't serving any food on board, but plenty of water bottles were handed out during each leg of the flight. Surprisingly, this Dash 8 actually had USB ports at every seat. That's a very nice touch I wasn't expecting. Pretty soon we began our descent, and here's our arrival into Inukjuak, landing on runway 25. Each of these stops were pretty short, but in the spirit of exploration, I did ask our very friendly crew if I could take a look outside from the door, and ended up getting to stand outside for a bit. The village of Inukjuak is home to around 1,800 people, and is served by this 3,500-foot gravel runway at Inukjuak Airport. In the early 20th century, a French fur trading company established a trading post here, originally known as Port Harrison. The area continued to develop over the decades, with Inukjuak being legally established as a municipality in 1980. Air Inuit typically flies here twice a day, stopping in on the northbound and southbound milk runs. That little look outside done, it's off to the next stop. Here's our departure from Inukjuak, taking off from runway 25. After Inukjuak, our next stop was Umiujaq, a smaller community of around 400 people. The cloud cover meant there wasn't a whole lot to see on this leg, aside from Hudson Bay below. With more bottles of water handed out, here's the next landing on Umiujaq's runway 20. Umiujaq was established fairly recently in 1986, following the Quebec government's controversial construction of hydroelectric power stations along La Grande Riviere as part of the James Bay project in the 1970s. With the threat of another proposed hydroelectric project along the Great Whale River near the Inuit village of Kuujjuarapik, many decided to relocate here, 160 kilometers north. Speaking of Kuujjuarapik, that's where we're headed next. Here's our departure off of runway 20. Once again, we had some great views of all these different islands along the coast, and this being the shortest leg of them all, we were only cruising at 8,000 feet. Arriving into Kuujjuarapik, which is below the tree line, you can tell the landscape already looks much different. Here's us landing on runway 03. Now for this stop in Kuujjuarapik, things were a bit different. Here, every passenger continuing on to Montreal did actually have to leave the plane and head inside to claim any checked baggage. Once that was done, then you would have to clear security before reboarding for this final leg. Kuujjuarapik is the southernmost village in Nunavik and is actually a bicultural community of Cree and Inuit. The area has been home to both Inuit and Cree people for over 2,800 years, and in 1820, the Hudson's Bay Company opened a trading post on the site of what is now the town of Kuujjuarapik. During World War II, the United States built a military base and airport here, which, although I'm not 100% sure on this, probably explains the existence of this huge hangar. For this final flight, we did have assigned seats, and I asked if I could get 1E, the exit row at the very front. It's got the excellent legroom you usually get at the front of a dash, along with a new view of the propeller. For the final time in what feels like a super long video, here's our departure off of runway 03. Even after those 3 previous flights, we were barely halfway to Montreal. This next leg directly to YUL would take 2.5 hours and was accompanied by, you guessed it, more water. As you can imagine, food on this journey was provided exclusively by the northern store in Puvirnituq. Bulkhead row of the Dash 8 does look slightly different, and the usual seat back pocket contents are just in the door instead. The USB ports are still available though, just underneath the seat. Most of Air Inuit's Dash 8 300s seat 45 passengers in a 1-class configuration. Now this is kind of interesting, since most Dash 8 300s usually seat 50, and they don't have 5 seats across at the very back. However, given the value of cargo space on these aircraft operating up north, as we've established, some of these Dash 8s are actually modified with an expanded cargo hold. This takes up what would usually be the rear galley as well as a few seats, allowing Air Inuit to carry 4,000 pounds of cargo in this expanded compartment. Up front as well is the usual Dash 8 sized lavatory. With the majority of the journey behind us, the rest of the flight went by pretty quickly, and we retreated to this beautiful sunset. Pretty soon the lights of Montreal finally appeared, and here's the final arrival of these 6 hours on a Dash 8, onto Montreal Trudeau Airport's runway 24 left. Well, that was my northern adventure with Air Inuit. What an amazing journey and what a story to tell. As someone who's fascinated with northern Canada, this was an incredible privilege to be able to visit, and this was a trip that I'll remember for a long time to come. Despite everything that happened, I am very thankful that I was able to visit Nunavik, and I can't wait to go back sometime in the future. Thank you so much for watching this Dash 8 milk run, especially if you have made it all the way to the end, and I will see you next time.